You know, I do think it's a little weird. I think that if you finish last place in the NHL, you should probably get the first overall pick. I don't like how the NHL does it. It is kind of weird that you can actually drop back to third place. I suppose the reason why they do it is to discourage tanking, but tanking is always going to be around. You're always just going to have to draft inside the top 10 of a draft to really usually be able to get a superstar player that is franchise changing. So I just think they should just go back to how it was. Draft first overall, you draft first overall, because it would be kind of weird if the Vancouver Canucks go back to the third pick overall when they probably deserve to draft first overall, in my opinion. Welcome back to Pixel Plus Hockey. If you could make sure to hit that subscribe button, it'd be so greatly appreciated, and thank you so much to those that are already supporting me as well. It is very humbling. And this is going to be question of the video. Let's assume Gavin McKenna and Steenberg are off 1-2 in the draft board. What exactly would you guys do third overall? Because you could argue that it becomes a little bit more murky at third overall. Would you just go with the projectable defenseman Keaton Bierhoff and just call it a day? But it is more of a complex issue. You need to get a really good franchise-changing player, and here we have a really interesting quote. If Vancouver finds itself selecting third, the draft board sings a much different tune. From a pure best player available perspective, the next name in line is likely defenseman Keaton Bierhoff, a right shot defender with a safe, projectable top pairing upside for many teams. That would be an easy call. For the Canucks, it's not so simple. Close quote. So this article is essentially arguing that because the Canucks have a pretty good plethora of young blue liners, it does become a little bit more complex. And with the Canucks being a little bit thin at center, although they have Elias Pettersson and Marco Rossi, they have a number of decent players, you could argue the pick might be best spent trying to get a centerman at that pick. Now, here's the thing. I don't think that people understand how difficult it is to win a Stanley Cup absent having a top pair defenseman. That is very, very important. Like, you need a top pair defenseman to win a cup. If you look back at teams that won the Stanley Cup, there's not many of them that did not have a solidified number one defenseman. And then it goes to Tynan Lawrence and Caleb Malhotra. These are players that definitely can give you more depth down the middle, and they are dynamic players. And it kind of looks to that and say, does it make more sense to just take one of them? Now, Lawrence has had some injury issues. Malhotra, not really. He is actually having a heck of a season, and he is quite talented. He is an interesting player that does give me a lot of pause. A center that shoots left from Toronto, Ontario, 6'2". I mean, man, 61 points in 45 games. His draft year has gone quite well with him and for the Brantford Bulldogs of the OHL. I don't know. This is a complex one in my opinion. Of all these players, when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, Caleb Malhotra probably gives me the most pause for what player that I would consider if it was not to take Bierhoff. I mean, he is an interesting player. He actually has a pretty good two-way game. He plays a bit more mature. He has the size. He has good hands. He has a shot. He pretty much has everything that you want. And this is a player that I think that might even drop out of the top 5 or top 6. That I think that he probably will go in the top 10, but whatever team picks Malhotra is gonna get a really good player that massively rose in the draft. Now, the one thing that you're always going to hear on this channel when I talk about drafting is I'm an advocate for management swinging for the fences. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? Just draft the player that you think is the best and can be the best player, okay? Because if you think you got a winger that's going to score 100 points, just draft him. If you think he's going to be that good. If you think the center's the better one, draft him. If you think Bierhoff is going to be the best or the defenseman, just draft him. So this is why I ultimately am going to go back to my philosophy in the draft of just swinging for the fences. If Bierhoff is available, I would take Bierhoff. Now, the good part about finishing last, and this is honestly why, with the way the NHL draft is, why it's actually very important for the Canucks to finish last in the league, is that the worst that can happen is they'll finish third. Actually, the most likely scenario is that they would finish third last in the league, right, in terms of draft. So at the end of the day, it's very important because you're going to get access to Gavin McKenna, Steenberg, or Vierhoff. Those are the three guys that I personally have pegged as franchise-changing players. When I talk about Bierhoff, the reason that I like him is because he has safe, projectable upside. He has offensive ability. He has size. He's probably going to be good defensively. He even shoots right. Like, he's the type of player that has the entire package. And I look at that, and again, I always look at the history of Stanley Cup winners. I always like to look at their rosters. What did they have? What similarities did they have? Because I do think that you can win a Stanley Cup in a bunch of different ways. Like, you can have a fast possession team that's, maybe not like elite away from the puck. You can win in a bunch of different ways. You can have a more defensive team that is, pretty good, elite away from the puck, but maybe a little bit worse offensively. So I look at it that the Canucks can build a team in a bunch of different ways, but they do need one thing, is a number one defenseman. So do you think Zeev Buyem is going in his prime going to be a number one defenseman? And if you do think he's already going to be a number one defenseman, then maybe it doesn't make sense. Now, I like Buyem a lot. I think maybe he's at a little bit of a slow start in Vancouver, but I still think he's going to be good. 6 points in 20 games, I think he's better than that. But, I'm not willing to completely bank on that quite yet. Of Vierhoff with him, you got both of these players. The odds of one of them becoming a number one defenseman are pretty darn high, and you would have a stacked blue line. Building from the net out to the blue line is how classic Stanley Cup teams are built. And honestly, it is kind of perfect how Zeev Buyem shoots left and Keaton Vierhoff shoots right, because you could literally just pair them together. It would be that would be an absolute deadly pair for the Canucks for the next decade. And honestly, from my perspective, I would just go with with my team scouting staff at their projection. So I would just ask them, like, what do you believe this player is going to be? What do you believe that player is going to be? Scouts tend to really like some of them have like their specific players. But from around the league, Vierhoff seems to be like the top projected defenseman going in the draft. And man, like getting a player like almost like a Victor Hedman type player, man. Getting a guy that's that big, that skates that well. This guy's 6'4" and he moves around quite well and he shoots right. God, that just helps your franchise so much. Anyways, guys, I think I'm going to leave this video here. If you can make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it, guys. And make sure to have a great day. Goodbye, guys.